Hey, what's up guys? Fish Tank Mike here with special guest Baby Yoda. We're gonna go around the fish room today. It's been a little bit of a break for me. It's been like 2 weeks of just kind of chilling, getting a little break from everything. But today we're gonna fix up all of our tanks because there's quite a few of them that need a little bit of work, and I thought it would be a perfect time to finally do an all my fish tanks video because for some reason I've never done one. The memes. Guys, we still have a pile of rocks from when we took down this tank. Like, what? My life is just so disorganized right now, but it ends today. We're getting on track. Take two. Guys, let's start off here with Ancient Gardens, everybody's favorite, okay? Including mine. I mean, truly, this is like the coolest tank that I've ever set up. This aquarium is humongous, at least for me. It's 6 feet across, it's 25 inches tall, I think, and 24 inches deep. It's a tank made by Waterbox Aquariums. They hooked this up and helped me to create this project, and they are also a channel sponsor, guys, so we thank them very much for their continued support. If we didn't have them, we wouldn't have been able to do this. But it's getting to a point, and I've mentioned it in a video before this, I'm kind of scared. I don't know what to do with it because it's just so overgrown. The Monte Carlo, you can see that it's just sitting on a bunch of dead material, right? I mean, this is what it does when it gets crazy and super overgrown like this. And so I don't know what the best move is gonna be. Are we gonna trim it? Are we just gonna rescape this tank? I mean, I'm terrified of making the decision. I know a lot of you guys don't want me to do anything to this tank because it's so awesome, but I'm really worried about trimming this thing up. I have a feeling it's just gonna butcher it and there's no good way to do it. This is like a big stressor in my life right now, what to do with this aquarium. Let's go through it really quick here, guys. So of course we have a ton of these chili rasboras. We added 300 of them to this aquarium. That video where we added the fish has, I think, like almost 1 million views, which is crazy viral for my channel, or you know, just aquarium YouTube videos in general. So thank you so much for being a part of that and helping support the channel. Smashing that like button really does help, guys. You have no idea. Question that new people to the channel always ask is what kind of moss is on those trees, and it's not a moss. We're using the Monte Carlo like we showed off before, and I decided to use this instead of moss because I was really just worried that if we used moss and it got a bunch of algae problems in the beginning of the setup, that it would be too hard to solve, because once you start to get algae growing inside of moss, it can be really hard to reverse that problem. So I wanted to kind of take a safer route here, and I'm glad we did this. It was fun. Change the background color too. I have it blue as kind of the default, but I really do like purple. And everything are just such a mess over here. Don't judge me too hard, guys. I think that's a good contrast. I really like the purple. What do you guys think? Background light is of course part of the current Serene system. We have 2 of their 6-foot LEDs up here on the top, so that's how we're providing light to the aquarium. Monte Carlo likes it a lot, but when we get down here, I mean 2 feet from the light source at least, some of the dwarf hairgrass isn't doing super great. Of a nutrient issue. It's really hard to maintain a concentration of nitrate or phosphate or anything in the water column of this aquarium because it's just starving for nutrients. There's so much biomass in here wanting those compounds. Pump over here, which hasn't been running for a long time because we don't have a little sponge cover for it. We did for a while, but then I lost it, and once we added the small fish in, we had to turn it off because it was gonna suck them into there and blow them all over the place, and we didn't want that. So still waiting on that, but regardless, even having just the flow from our big Awaza canister filter here, just that has been enough for this tank. Use that increase in flow though, although now with these trees being so overgrown, like the pump is almost completely blocked up. So I mean, a lot of issues. This Monte Carlo has been growing for like 8 months or something like that, and so I had a plan for this tank looking like this. Yeah, we'll have to just play it by ear and figure it out as we go. Repins in here, that is the main plant that you see right now. It's starting to get a little leggy, but it's done well in this tank. Bucephalandra is sprinkled throughout the tank. We of course have some peacock moss in here as well, and I think that is pretty much it for the plants. Mono shrimp in this aquarium too. You can see there's one right there. I think we added like 40 of them to this thing, which was enough to handle the little bit of string algae that we had in this aquarium for a while. But I mean, I hardly ever see them because 40 doesn't do it justice in this size of a tank. We got Ancient Gardens all done with the water change, guys. The tank is looking pretty good, but while I was doing that, I did notice that some of the chili rasboras have a little bit of fungus on them, which is really weird. I was not expecting to see that, so we're gonna have to treat the tank or take the sick fish out and see what we can do there. Not good, not a great way to start off this video, but I think we're gonna save how we're gonna handle that for a different video, just because I do want to show you guys the rest of the tank. So yeah, this is not good. I need to go sterilize myself and the equipment that I'm going to use on other tanks. We might just use a brand new siphon, but we want to make sure we don't spread anything to the other aquariums. Continue the tour now, guys, and I'm all cleaned up. Let's take a look at the 340s, okay? We got the Avater tank looking super, super mossy. There is just, where's the hair grass? I don't even see it anymore. So got the forest tank, which needs a lot of help. Just start dosing it with a new fertilizer. That seems to be helping out the S. repens and the needle leaf liquigia, but this tank is also just crazy. And we have this tank over here, which still doesn't have a name. It probably never will, but it obviously needs a humongous trim because it's just totally overgrown. Dudes, what's up? Guys, Flipper is such a cool company. I love these magnifying glasses. I reached out to them to be a channel sponsor because I just needed to have their stuff in my life. Love these things. As you can see, I have them on like all my tanks right now. Eye on the shrimps over here on the Avater rocks with the huge magnifying glass. Do a bang up job of cleaning the tanks with the blade or the pad on the back. Seriously awesome at cleaning your tanks, and they're super low profile, so they can even fit like in between my two aquariums right here, which is really nice. Job over at Flip Aquatics to carry some of these things, so you can use my discount codes and save a little bit of money on this Flipper stuff if you want to get yourself some. Whoa, how'd I get upstairs? Let's start by doing some maintenance here on this tank, guys. We got to do a ton of trimming here, and yeah. Doing a huge trim like this can be kind of scary if it's the first time you're ever doing it, guys. You have to just understand that as long as you have a good root system on your stem plants, they're gonna grow back and they're gonna look even better than they did before. Even over here on the left, we're still gonna cut this down even lower, probably at the point of where this piece of wood is, because again, that's just going to be the point at which it starts to grow. We want the growth to look good with the plants at about this level, okay? We don't want to cut them back like, say, up here, because then they're just not gonna have that long to grow, right? We can only grow them up so high in this aquarium. And we just wanna make sure that we're gonna have different phases at which the tank looks good. And so the lower we cut, the better it's gonna look for a longer amount of time before we have to do another big trim. I know it looks really bad right now, but trust me, pretty much any stem plant, as long as it has a good root system, is gonna come back just fine. Hit it with some of that Fritz glass cleaner. Ooh, fancy. Microfiber cloths only, guys. And there we go. Now we just gotta wait, guys, and come back to the tank in a couple hours and keep skimming off the top, all the plants that are floating up at the top still. And just be patient and let this thing start to grow back. It's gonna look phenomenal in about 3 weeks. I can't recommend enough all the different types of Rotala in this tank. We just have Macarandra, we have some pink, I think we have some Rotundifolia red, and maybe some green as well. And they're just all kind of thrown in there in random places. We have a couple pieces of Anubias, the Nana Petite in here, and we had some Congensis. Decided to take it out though because it can't keep up with everything else. It just got devoured by the Rotala last time, and it doesn't mention it doesn't really like the highlight in that tank anyway. I know you guys want to hear about the fish though, so check out these Madagascar rainbows. When I got them, they didn't have the red in the tails, and now they do. These fish are awesome. I think they're super, super beautiful. We also have the white rummy nose tetras in here. They are always fun to watch, always schooling around together. Rummy nose are fantastic schooling fish, whether they're these ones, the white variety, albino rummy nose, or just normal ones. There's a ton of rummy nose tetras, and they're all just really, really great schoolers. There's also the Cory cats in here, messing up my substrate 24/7. Some autos in the back. You can see, oh, there's one right there on the wood. Pretty, you know, decent algae cleaners. They're just going to be sucking on stuff. The livestock that we have in here, guys, that's probably all we'll ever have in here. Not going to be a very shrimp-friendly tank or anything like that. Tank, just like the other two, are pretty much ran all in the same way. This is especially janky though because we still have the old method of lighting on here. We have the Fluval plant LED or the 3.0 or whatever you want to call it, and we have to lift it up because this is a 40 breeder, and if we had this light just sitting down on like this brace that we have, then the light distribution isn't very good. So we have it just sitting up here on these super janky clamps, but I mean, it works. Fixing up this tank here soon and kind of completing it and rounding it out, but all the time, what's up with these tanks? These are just Aquarium aquariums. They're 40 breeders that I got from Petco a million years ago. I went ahead and popped the rim off and then just added a little brace here in the middle. Worked well for me. All three of them have been set up for like a year, so we only had one problem with a brace coming off of this middle tank, and it didn't break the tank or anything. It was all good. I just had to re-silicone part of the seal here, and everything was okay. So, I mean, this is a way to do it. When we set up these aquariums, we did a whole video on de-rimming them and stuff if you want to learn how to go about doing that. But, you know, it's not the best thing in the world. It makes the situation a little sketchy, and you definitely have to get creative if you do need to make a lid. But how it is going to be for a rimless tank no matter what. Off of these things here. So down here, all three of the tanks run off of this central CO2 system. We have 3 bubble counters here kind of going at different rates depending on how much CO2 I want in each aquarium. We have an Awaza. What is this? The FiltoSmart 300 thermo. So it's got the built-in heater, and we have a 100 on this one, and we have a 200 over on the Avater tank, which we'll get to in a second. Backlight that fell off like a million years ago. I actually kind of forgot that was there. Right here are Petco, the Brooklyn style, like aluminum or metal stands. These custom fronts that kind of work most of the time. It's just super thin plywood, and then there's some neodymium magnets that are on both. So I think overall it makes a pretty clean look, and I'm happy with it, but we might be upgrading all 3 of these tanks at some point this year. I'm not quite sure yet. To the forest tank, this thing needs a lot of work. Here we are a day later, guys, and both of these tanks have cleared up very, very nicely. Looking good. Let me try. I have this polarizing lens on to help with the reflections, but there's this weird thing right here. Let's take this thing off and see if, I don't really know how much of a difference that makes. It gets rid of that thing though. Anyway, these 2 tanks are looking very, very nice. This one is just always a battle with algae, guys. There's a lot of fish, there's a lot of organic material, and it might just be a tank that I'm always kind of working on. I have recently started to get a lot better growth out of the S. repens and even some of the Boos plants that we have in here, so I'm still optimistic about it, and this tank might not ever be algae free. I still think it looks pretty good, especially from afar like this. The aquarium is full of Cory tetras, one of my absolute favorite fish, guys. They have this amazing purple color that I think is super unique, and I think they go great in this aquarium. The same stuff that we have going on in this tank is going on in this tank. The only difference is that we have our CO2 going up into an AWASA pump that's kind of pushing it around the tank and doing a little bit better job of circulating it, because we have so much of this manzanita wood kind of block and flow in our tank. A very good place to put it to where we could get any better flow, so we're doing the best we can over here. We had a lot more moss on the twigs in the back here and even up here in the front, but I don't know, the moss for whatever reason didn't seem to do very well in this aquarium, and a lot of times when moss isn't doing good, it often attracts algae to grow on it, and then it just kind of gets worse and worse and worse. So pretty much every time we do a water change on this tank, a little bit of moss ends up coming out of the aquarium in an attempt to get rid of a little bit more algae, but that's okay. I still really like this tank, even though it has kind of been a headache since day one. 2 tanks done, guys. That leaves us with one more 40 breeder, and this is of course the Avater tank. Fast forward quite a bit, guys. This is the end result of my very long moss trimming procedure, okay? It took a lot longer than I thought, but we had a little bit of collateral damage up there at the top. You can see this little piece right here. I don't know where that was attached, but I just kind of stuck it back in place. And you know, the more I look at the Avater tank, the more I realize that we need to just take out a lot more moss. So there's a lot of these portions over here that are just literally resting here. Like, if we come in and do this, then they all float away. So I think ultimately what we're going to do is just really clean this thing out, leave the top structure the way it is, of course figure out where to glue that little piece back, but keep that the same and just really go through and expose more of the hardscape and get rid of a little bit more moss. This tank is also approaching the year mark, and you know, it's done pretty well. It's gone through multiple phases where it's looked really good and then not looked so good, and vice versa. But yeah, also one of my favorite tanks. So livestock in here, these fish are going to be kind of skittish, but you see the blue rasboras here hiding in the back. We also have some brown diptail pencil fish that are also super scared of me when I get close to the tank. And then we have our blue dream shrimp from Flip Aquatics, and me not culling the tank has resulted in there being a lot of different color varieties of shrimp in here ultimately, guys, and I don't know, I think that's kind of cool. Even the equipment for this tank, guys, the only real difference between these 3 tanks is the lighting. So here we have the current Serene with the current Orbit brackets, which this is the preferred method. This is what I ultimately want to have over on the tank that we just trimmed over here, and we'll get there eventually. The Forest tank, we have one of the newer Kessel lights. I think I already mentioned that, but we pretty much need to have that on there because of all the big sticks coming up out of the water. But I think this lighting setup is pretty sleek, and ultimately I'm happy with it. Move over here, guys, we have the Guppy wine glass. This is it's like a 4-foot tall wine glass. It's not supposed to have water. It's really sketchy. Okay, that's about as much as I could touch this thing. You have a Denalay light, which is just kind of hanging on the back here. It's not going to fall in or anything, but you know, not the most solid setup in the world. Tuxedo guppies from Kang Lee over at Twin Cities Guppies, and these guys are pretty sweet. I enjoy having these fish. They've bred more than a few times. They always eat their babies. We haven't done anything to pull them out yet, and I think we do have a couple babies hiding in here somewhere that are swimming around there in the back. But yeah, this thing pretty much just sits here. It's on autopilot. I put a ton of food into it. These guppies are super hungry all the time. We also have some mono shrimp, also from Flip Aquatics, that are hanging out here eating, you know, what algae pops up. And that's pretty much this thing. I mean, there's no filter, there's just a light, and everything in here is doing pretty good. Experiment tanks, which we're not going to talk too much about. They always change, and we're kind of wrapping up an experiment right now. And then we have the newest thing that we have made down here, which is our little immersed setup to replace the Monte Carlo on the top here. It got super moldy because we have it completely sealed off here. We're just letting the Monte Carlo get rooted before we go to the normal lid that we made, which is hiding over here. And the water, though, is doing really good, and it's actually, even just having this stuff in here for like a week, it's already sending roots down to grab onto the substrate. So hopefully we take this saran wrap off soon and then get our normal lid on there that's going to allow for a little bit more air exchange, prevent that mold, and then we'll have this thing looking pretty good in no time. Now we're upstairs, guys, and let's get the bad news out of the way first. So this is the forest tank, and it's just completely busted. We have our Scarlet Batis in here, and they're not gonna come out because they're super scared of the camera, but yeah, this is obviously gonna get a big rework pretty soon here. It's on my list of things to do, but this one just got away from us. It's also pretty old. It's like a year old. Don't worry, we're gonna basically try to recreate the same scape in here, just start from scratch. So anyway, that's all I want to show about that tank. Here we have Richard in his little 8-gallon aquarium. Hey Richard, what's going on, buddy? He's doing really, really good in here, and this tank is just completely on autopilot. We have a few different types of Rotala. There is some Java Fern and some Boos in here. Red root floaters up here, and then we have this really weird type of algae, which I've never seen in any of my aquariums before. It's this really thick stuff that kind of looks like a straight version of staghorn, but then it's also green. It's kind of weird, but it stays pretty much just on the wood, so I'm not too worried about it. It's an easy little tank. We also have some black Neo shrimp in here that hang out with Richard. He occasionally chases them around, and sometimes he even grabs up one for a snack, but then he always spits them out. So he's ever actually eaten a full shrimp, but maybe a smaller one? I don't know. Last but not least, we have Kevin and his tank over here in the corner. Kevin is a beast. We need to do a water change up here in his tank, as well as pretty much all the other tanks up here. We'll do that as soon as we wrap up here, guys, but this is definitely one of my favorite tanks as well. It's just this super jungly, like 11-gallon cube, and it's pretty much like the perfect beta tank in my opinion. Lots of plants. We got dwarf hairgrass, there's a crypt there, there's moss, there's needleleaf java fern, there's baby tears, there's red root floaters up at the top, and room in here for him to go swim around, get into little tight spots where there's a lot of plants like beta fish like to do. So this is kind of like, I think, one of my best representations of making a beta habitat without actually really making one, if that makes sense. I just think this tank is really good for Kevin, and I think Kevin likes it a lot. That's what I'm trying to say. The Awaza Filto Smart 60 little hang-on back canister on here. We have the Nano 1 Premium LED that's app controlled. Really love this light. Yeah, just active substrate, the plants we already talked about, and that's pretty much it. My Christmas decorations, what am I doing, guys? So anyway, this is the last thing that we have in here. This is the much smaller wine glass, not quite 4 feet tall, but it's just filled up here with some Monte Carlo. It's got some baby tears. It's hanging out by the window right here, and we have the little Phoenix light clipped on here to the TV to give it some extra light. A couple red shrimp in here that we put in from the forest tank that's up here, but other than that, I mean, this thing just kind of sits here and hangs out. Obviously no filter. There is a little bit of algae in here. Whoa, oopsies. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like a fun thing to look at on the side, and pretty much no maintenance. So anyway, guys, I think that's it for today's super long video. If you made it this far, you're a champ. Thank you so much, and we'll get back into a better rhythm of uploads here, guys. We won't make you wait like 2 weeks or whatever it is for an upload, okay? I promise. Let's get back on it. 2020 is going to be a fantastic year, and let's start out by saving what sick fish we have in this tank. Kind of a bummer, but hey, you know, such is life. Thank you again so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.